Hello, welcome back to my channel. This is my cat. He wants to recommend some summer reads.
Life could be a dream, sweetheart. Life could be a dream.
We have an eclectic mix here. Well, not that eclectic. We have a mix here. We have some modern classics, we have some contemporary fiction, and we have one nonfiction, I think. So let's get started. I have two right next to me, so I guess we'll start there. The first one is Poppy Show by Leonie Ross. In the UK, it's called This One Sky Day. You're gonna see Watson jumping around everywhere because he's excited about life, like we all wish we were, you know? Poppy Show by Leonie Ross. It's set on an island or an archipelago where everyone has like specific magical powers, kind of like Encanto. I hear it described a lot. We follow lots of different characters that have lots of different things going on in their personal lives. One of our main characters has the ability to cook really good foods, that he can season food perfectly with just the power, the touch of his hand. He's asked by the governor to prepare a meal for his daughter's wedding. We follow lots of different characters and their intricate personal lives. From there, it's just super summery, okay? First of all, look at this cover. You know, we love it. And it's set on an island with like magical powers. I don't think I need to say any more than that, you know? And then the next book we have here is The Trick to Time by Kit Dewal. Now this is one of my favorite books, probably. This is more like breezier, cool feeling summer weather, right? We follow this woman who is in the later years of her life and she's living in like a seaside town. I think in the UK. She's originally from Ireland when she was younger, but she's in the UK living in a seaside town and she lives by herself. She's just kind of going about her life, and then she starts to, you know, have different interactions with different gentlemen, one that lives close to her, I think in the same apartment building, and a man that she knows well who kind of works by her, who also works by the sea. So you know, you have those sea vibes, those summery, beachy, oceany vibes going on there. This book is very emotional. Okay? So it definitely made me cry. We just follow this woman who is thinking about her life, basically. It cuts between her past and her present, what kind of happened to get her from there to here. Okay, so the next book we have is by Maggie O'Farrell, and it is called Instructions for a Heat Wave. Now, I should have said this in the intro, but whatever, I'm saying it now. I think that summer is my least favorite season. I'm just gonna be real here. I don't like the heat, okay? I do not like the heat. It makes you feel super claustrophobic, you know, it makes you feel like you're going to internally combust. It makes you feel like a pot of water bubbling over, and it's like your insides and your emotions are like the water and your body is the pot, and it's just so freaking hot. You feel constricted and confined and claustrophobic, and everything just kind of bursts out, like, you know what I mean? That's what I feel like a lot of these books that have a setting where, you know, you can really feel like the weather is a character. You're really sitting in the swampiness of the air. I feel like they're all about how people have been repressing certain parts of themselves or repressing certain things in their life and just kind of going along with things. It's almost like the heat, the character of the heat is forcing it out of you just to break out of the claustrophobia of compliance, I guess, with the life that you're living and the lies that you're telling yourself, into messy honesty, kind of. So I really love heat type atmospheric settings because I feel like it really gets to the nitty-gritty of a character. Anyway, let me tell you what this freaking book is about, okay? So Instructions for a Heat Wave. I really like Maggie O'Farrell. I think like a lot of people, I started reading her when her book Hamnet was longlisted for the Women's Prize in 2020. And then it won. So this is set in July 1976 in London. It's the grip of like a massive heat wave. And it's basically following this family and all their dysfunctions, and then kind of how they, you know, come together at the end, or find their truth and speak their truth basically at the end. We have a husband and a wife whose children are all grown up. The husband, so the husband and the wife, the husband goes for a walk one day and just doesn't come back, and so the mom is really nervous and she contacts her children to come back basically. So that's basically what this is about. I think it's a perfect read for the summer. specifically because of that claustrophobic heat and the sweltering atmosphere and that tension. So instructions for a heat wave. Okay, and then the next book I think would be perfect, very atmospheric to read in the summer is Purple Hibiscus by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. This book is set in Nigeria, and we follow a 15-year-old girl who is living on her family estate, and her life is defined by her extremely religious father. So you have those themes of repression and claustrophobia in that regard, and the family state. And also it's just, I feel like the Nigerian setting, you know, it's warm. I just feel like it's conducive to reading in the summertime. You can really feel that heat and again that claustrophobia that our main character is feeling. Follow our 15-year-old character. A war that breaks out in Nigeria, and her father sends her to go live with her aunt, and then when she's living with her aunt she learns about herself. She experiences lust and love, and she learns hidden secrets basically in her family. So I just feel like those vibes are such summery vibes, like the sweltering tension, and again just just picture a pot of water boiling over. It's like the family secrets are bubbling and boiling over. And then I feel like this would be a really perfect book to read in the summer as well, because it's set kind of, I don't fully remember because I read it a while ago and it wasn't like my favorite book of all time, but I really appreciated it, and it was obviously really well done. And that's Second Place by Rachel Cusk. It's set during a dry summer, and I think she's by some sort of body of water. I can't fully remember, but basically we follow this woman who is a famous artist, or used to be a famous artist, and she's living with her partner, and she has friends come and visit them who are also artists. There's lots of religious imagery in here, and the Garden of Eden. Utopia that's not really utopia, you know what I mean? The dirty, ugly secrets that sit in the dirt of the utopia. You know what I mean? Her daughter comes to visit them with her partner. All these people end up stuck together in this area, in this location, in close proximity. It's about those tensions, and it's about art. It's about male privilege and human relationships, mother-daughter relationships. I just think this would be a really perfect book to read in the summertime. Again, because of the landscape that it's set on, the nature imagery, that this is also set during summer. This is the only Rachel Cusk that I've read so far, and I did read it, I think because it was longlisted. Yeah, it wasn't shortlisted. The Booker. If you're wondering why the lighting has changed, it's because I turned on a light behind me. So we're going with it, okay? All right, this next recommendation is like a full-on category recommendation. So I'm just like blanket recommending this whole genre of book. But I have one specific, two actually, to show you. So we have Greek mythology retellings. Really, honestly, any book set in antiquity, the Odyssey, the Iliad, because it's like warm, you know? You're in Greece. Who doesn't want to go to Greece in the summertime? There's lots of, in like the Iliad and the Odyssey, you know, the Odyssey, Odysseus is on a ship. There's the ocean, you know, Poseidon's large and in charge in that book. And, you know, in the Iliad, they're like fighting on beaches and like living on beaches, and they're sweating and it's dirty and it's like yucky, just like summer is. Okay, I'm just recommending retellings because they're gonna be faster and more fun to read anyways. Here we have 1,000 Ships by Natalie Haynes, which out of all the Greek myth retellings I've read, this is probably my favorite. I think that it's the most artfully done. I think that it's the most accomplished. We follow all the different women most of the different women who were involved in the original story of the Iliad and who were affected by the Trojan War but don't get voices in the original retellings of it. This book is just it's really good. If you haven't read it yet, please read it, okay? We also hear from the voice of the muse. I don't remember if it's the Iliad or the Odyssey, but you know how the first line or one of the first lines is sing muse. So it's like the male writer asking the female muse to give him the power and the ability and the support to write this story. And you know, that's in a sense the male taking the muse's voice away. We hear in here to the voice of the muse kind of talking, being used to inspire people to write stories and what have you. 1,000 Ships. That, and then another just really quick read that's also a Greek myth retelling is Medusa by Jessie Burton, which is super beautiful. This is like an adult picture, any age, honestly. This is like a picture book. So we have, okay, well that's a great example. pages of words. We have drawings throughout. You can just sit down for like a couple hours and read through this, and it's absolutely stunning. This is obviously following the story of Medusa, who was raped by a god and then cursed by Athena to have snakes as hair, so no men will find her beautiful. About her story from there, living on an island with her two sisters who are half bird. I forget what they're called. They're like half bird, half human. But this is really beautiful. It's about her living with her dog, yeah, and her sisters, and then Perseus obviously comes to the island. You know, it's very predictable, and we know the story anyways, but it reads very predictably. But it's a nice meditative read almost, and you have the beautiful pictures, so I love that. This was illustrated by Olivia Lomenick-Gill. We'll go with the nonfiction next. This is another one of my favorite books. I think about it all the time. If I could live any life, I would live the life written about in this story, and that is The Radiant Lives of Animals by Linda Hogan. Part memoir-ish, kind of nature writing, and there's a little bit of poetry kind of interspersed throughout this really short little book. And Linda Hogan is a Chickasaw poet. She's an essayist and a teacher. This book is really just kind of about her experiences in her life living in a really small off the beaten path town in Colorado, where she's kind of rehabilitating horses, her two horses. You know, eventually with time, obviously animals pass away, so it's about her dealing with that grief and connecting with nature. It's really beautiful the way that Linda Hogan interacts with all the different wildlife and the bees and the ants that kind of come into her home, and she allows them to be, and she doesn't, you know, interfere with nature. And it's just, this book is so peaceful and beautiful, and it's the perfect read if you're just like going to the pool or the beach. Sit down, start it, and finish it, because it's really quick, and it just, like the ocean, like the waves, just kind of like moves you fluidly along, and it's really calming and peaceful. So I really love this book. I've never ever heard anyone talking about it. Sometimes one of my favorite things to do is go to Barnes & Noble and just look around for a few hours and pick whatever fucking random book that I find that I've never heard of anybody talk about before, but that I'm personally interested in. I literally, that never fails me. I don't think I've ever picked up a shitty book by doing that. I've loved all of them. I need to do that more. I have another book in this list is from when I did that. Okay, so we'll talk about that later. So now we're on to like modern classics. I don't know, are these considered modern classics? What is a classic? Whatever, we're just moving on. We have one of my favorite writers of all time. We have Kurt Vonnegut's Cat's Cradle, which is like a light sci-fi. He's like a light sci-fi writer, but with lots of social commentary, so much heart. I think that oftentimes Kurt Vonnegut is perceived as nihilistic, but he's totally not. He's just so full of warmth and heart. Like, his tone is very disillusioned. Like, he's very disillusioned with the world and with humanity, and therefore I think sometimes people perceive him as negative, but it's like he's disappointed because he sees the potential for beauty, I think, is kind of how I read Kurt Vonnegut, and I love him so much. I love him so much. I love Kurt Vonnegut. Okay, we gotta move on. Why do I recommend Cat's Cradle? This book specifically, I know we go to an island later on in the story where we meet these like people that follow like a fictional religion called Bacanism, I believe it's called. You know, by an ocean, there's the heat, there's like beachy landscape kind of around this island where he goes and visits. But in the beginning, we follow this man who is writing a biography of a scientist who created a nuclear bomb. He goes in and visits this man's children. This man also invented something called Ice 9, which is really reactive. Like, if it touches anything, it freezes all water that's then touching that water, that's then touching that water. So obviously if a human touches it, they're gonna die. We follow this journey of this man who's a reporter talking to this famous scientist who created these terrible things. He's thinking about why does man create all of this horrible shit? Like, why? Like, just because you can does not mean you should. You know what I mean? Like, we destroy ourselves with our creations half the time, with our curiosity, you know what I mean? This is just super interesting. Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut. Please read this. It's also super short. And then we have The Invention of Morel by Adolfo Cesares. This is super, super reminiscent of Piranesi. So if you read Piranesi by Susanna Clarke and loved it, honestly pick this up. This was obviously published well before that in the 20th century. And we follow a man. He's on an island. He's by himself. And he starts to meet these people who are repeating their same actions day after day. It's, again, like the heat. You know, sometimes when you get hot, you get a little insane. You know what I mean? I'm sure we've all experienced that. And that's kind of the vibes that this gives off. The hallucinatory nature that sometimes feeling overheated gives you. Hallucinatory vibes, heat, summer, island. And it's short. And then we have E.M. Forster's A Room with a View, which is set in Italy over the summer, and we follow our main character, Lucy, who is young, and she's walking around Italy, meeting all these different people, and they're traveling around Italy together, and they go on a picnic in the flower fields. That's besides the point. But those are the summary vibes. Within this large group of people, we have a bunch of different people in different kind of class categories and things like that. And she meets a boy, and she obviously has expectations of her. This is set in Edwardian times. Just the Italian vibes, being in Italy, you know, exploring Italy. Summary vibes. It's short. 3 more, alrighty? So the first one we have here of the 3, we have The Tartar Steppe by Dino Bizzotti, which is translated from the Italian. Blurbed by Jorge Luis Borges and J.M. Coetzee, so big weight behind those quotes. And this is following an idealistic young man who goes to be a soldier, and he's stationed at this fort, basically in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of this desert. All of these people are essentially, you get the impression that they're all trapped in the amber of time. That is the Kurt Vonnegut reference. If you picked up on it, give me a thumbs up, because I love you if you did. They're all trapped in the amber of time in this fort, waiting for something to happen, waiting for their glory to come, waiting for their lives to finally begin. And in doing so, they're wasting the time that they do have, and they're wasting their lives waiting for their life to start. Sound familiar sometimes? I think so. It's just a bunch of men and young men at different stages of their life, at different stages of disillusionment, waiting for something to happen. And that sounds really boring, but I feel like this is very poignant, and it's something that you can really sit and think about. You know, while you're sitting at the pool and the sun's beating down on you, you can just be thinking, oh my gosh, what is life? Like, what is time? What does it mean to waste time? Certainly not sitting by the pool and relaxing. That is not a waste of time. But anyways, I digress. Yeah, this was written in 1938, and I really like this. I also really like cover. Which is important, okay? It's important. And then we have the other book, which was one of the books that I picked up at Barnes & Noble, just kind of perusing years ago. One of my all-time favorite books is La Femme de Giles by Madeleine Bordeaux. Mentioned this previously. But this is super, super short. It's a novella. I think it's like 100 pages. And we follow this woman who's a devout wife. And I think she just had a baby. And she comes to kind of discover that her husband is cheating on her with someone who is it. It's shocking when you find out. Why I think this is perfect to read in the atmosphere of summer. It has all those themes too, and those vibes that I've previously mentioned that I feel like are really conducive to reading in the summer. Like feeling really pressed and claustrophobic in your life and trapped in this situation, or you're trapped in the heat. There's nowhere to go when it's fucking a million degrees outside. It's about lust and desire, oppression, really. It's basically what it's about. It's set among the dusty lanes and rolling valleys of rural 1930s Belgium. I read that from the back, obviously. It's such a flawless feminist work without being super obviously so. It's super subtle. Like it's masterfully subtle, and it is so beautiful. So read it. And then last but not least, I mean, heat, man. The heat. The grossness. the sweat, the dirt, the grime, the grit, the ew is in this book. Hunter S. Thompson's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, which I think is set after, you know, America had become disillusioned after, you know, the Manson murders and all that shit. It's under nonfiction and journalism. Anyway, Hunter S. Thompson was a really interesting writer. He had a very unique journalistic style that reads very much so like a fiction novel, very narrative-like, and we follow the Hunter S. Thompson and this other dude that he's with. They go to Las Vegas to report on this race that's going on, and they're basically just drunk and high the whole time. They do literally every single kind of drug that has ever been created. They just do every single type of drug under the sun, under the hot Las Vegas sun. Okay, summer. This book specifically is a lot about, again, completely about disillusionment with the American dream. You just have those nasty, dirty, gritty vibes being in Las Vegas, in the desert, bloated with disappointment of life in the world is kind of how I would describe it. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. It's also a movie too, so that is my summer reading recommendation video. I hope you find something that you're interested in reading. Let me know if you do decide to pick up any of these books, and if you do, let me know what you think of them. I hope you liked them, whatever you decide to read. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye.